Although just 19 years old, helicopter pilot Larry Earles didn't hesitate for a moment when he heard a call for help over his radio. In the distance, he saw an F-4 Phantom co-pilot eject from the burning aircraft just before it went down in a ball of flames. Through the thick jungle canopy, Larry managed to locate the downed airman who had climbed up into the trees. He lowered his Loach as far as possible, allowing the captain to wrap his arms around the skids and be lifted to safety. With co-pilot secured, Larry quickly located the pilot of the downed aircraft, Captain Joe Garzik. Within minutes, both airmen were en route to Camp Eagle, rescued from almost certain death in the jungles of Vietnam. This wasn't the only daring rescue this young pilot made during his 2 tours in Vietnam. He faced countless similar situations, saving the lives of many men. What's more, despite his age, Larry survived more near-death experiences than most helicopter pilots in the war. And the most fascinating part? He came out of all of them without a scratch. This is the story of the indestructible pilot Larry Earles. Larry Earles' path to Vietnam began in a movie theater where he watched The Green Berets. The film made such a strong impression on him that he immediately wanted to join the military. As a rebellious teenager who often found himself in trouble, the Army seemed like the right path. Interestingly, Larry didn't plan on becoming a helicopter pilot. When he spoke to the Army recruiter, he said he wanted to be a sniper, but the Army already had more than enough foot soldiers and desperately needed helicopter pilots. The recruiter suggested Larry consider aviation instead. Larry had never flown before and wasn't quite sure he could do it, but the recruiter reassured him the Army would train him, and if he didn't qualify, he could return to his original plan. Larry took the advice and went to flight school after basic training. He never expected the school would change his life. In high school, he had little interest in studying and didn't do well, but at flight school, Larry found something meaningful to work toward. He discovered a strong drive to succeed and quickly became a focused trainee. After basic flight skills, Larry moved on to advanced training, flying larger helicopters such as Hueys. The final stage of his training was gunnery school, where he learned to handle weapons while flying. In November 1968, he graduated and went straight to Vietnam. In the Vietnam War, U.S. Army helicopter pilots typically served one 12-month tour of duty. However, many pilots ended up coming back due to reassignment. Because of this, Larry Earles chose to serve 2 tours back-to-back as he wanted to complete all his combat duties before getting married to a girl he met during flight school. In his first few weeks in Vietnam, Larry flew the Huey, transporting soldiers into combat zones and providing air support. Soon after, he was reassigned to pilot the OH-6 Cayuse, commonly known as the Loach. This was a light observation helicopter, much smaller but far more maneuverable than Huey. From that point on, Larry spent the rest of the war on the Loach, primarily flying dangerous hunter-killer missions. Hunter-killer missions were among the most dangerous operations in the Vietnam, with a notoriously short life expectancy for the pilots who flew them. In his Loach, Larry would fly low and slow, scanning the jungle canopy, mountain ridges, and hidden trails for signs of enemy activity, caves, bunkers, or movement on the ground. His job was to provoke a response. By drawing enemy fire, he revealed hidden positions, allowing the accompanying AH-1 Cobra gunship to locate and eliminate the threat. In essence, Larry was the bait flying into danger so others could strike. Because the helicopter flew so low, sometimes at heights of 50 feet, enemies could see it very clearly. Larry knew the risks, but accepted that he was a target every time he took off. Whenever his helicopter was hit or came under fire, his gunner or observer would immediately toss a smoke grenade to mark the enemy's position. This allowed the accompanying Cobra gunship to pinpoint exactly where to strike. At the same time, Larry would radio for ground troops to be deployed by slick Hueys. Flying at such low altitudes meant enemy fire came fast and without warning. Over time, Larry developed lightning-fast reflexes. The moment he was fired upon, he would yank the controls, pulling up, speeding away, and dodging to safety. If the helicopter was hit, he had only a few seconds to assess the damage and figure out how much time he had before losing control entirely. These high-stakes missions put Larry in constant danger of being shot down, which in his case happened 7 times. Even more astonishing, he walked away from every single crash without a scratch. On one mission, Larry's Loach was hit by enemy fire, but he managed to keep it airborne for another 15 minutes. The moment the helicopter took the hit, Larry reacted instinctively, pulling up to gain altitude and speed in an attempt to escape the enemy's line of fire. The incident took place in the mountains, and Larry hoped to make it to the flatlands before the damage became catastrophic. Fortunately, another helicopter trailing him reported the extent of the damage over the radio. At first, the burning fuel emitted white smoke, which was not such a bad thing, but when black smoke began pouring out, it signaled something far worse, that the mechanical components were on fire. Luckily, just in time, Larry spotted a clear area in the rice paddies below. He brought the helicopter down for an emergency landing, and he and his gunner jumped out immediately. Seconds later, the helicopter exploded in a massive blast, throwing them both to the ground. Miraculously, despite the force of the explosion, Larry and his gunner walked away without a single injury. On another occasion, Larry found himself in an even more dangerous situation. He just rescued 2 downed pilots when his Loach got hit. The helicopter crashed behind enemy lines and the crew came dangerously close to being captured. The 4 men quickly moved away from the wreckage and crawled into thick elephant grass, knowing enemy troops would soon be searching for them. The men found a bomb crater and slipped inside, laying low with only 2 pistols between them. They set up a quiet defensive position and went completely still. Enemy soldiers soon arrived and came terrifyingly close, passing within just 5 feet of their hiding place. Larry and the others barely dared to breathe. For nearly 3 hours, they remained hidden while enemy forces combed the area. With the field swarming with troops, a rescue was nearly impossible. All they could do was stay silent and hope help would arrive. At last, after hours of tense waiting, rescue helicopters reached their location and extracted them safely. Larry and his crew had narrowly escaped capture and almost certain death. Avoiding death on 7 occasions made Larry Earles a legend, both among fellow airmen and even the enemy. Word spread that a bounty had been put on his head. Unshaken, Larry began wearing a red scarf, daring the enemy to aim for him more easily. Although hunter-killer missions were his main assignment, Larry also took part in a wide range of other operations. He always kept an ear on the emergency frequency and would respond to any distress call that came through. In addition to combat missions, he flew medevacs, troop extractions, supply runs, and various support operations. During one special mission, Larry was tasked with supporting ground troops searching for signs of enemy activity. The soldiers suspected enemy forces were nearby but couldn't pinpoint their location. Larry jumped in to assist, flying low over the area and scanning the terrain closely. As he searched, he spotted a narrow trail leading straight to a concealed cave. He immediately radioed the troops on the ground, guiding them to the exact location. Inside the cave, the soldiers uncovered a large cache of weapons, and among them a North Vietnamese flag. As a gesture of gratitude, they presented the flag to Larry. On it, they had written messages. To Thunder 007, Larry's call sign, and from Jockstrap in the firebase. Larry Earles returned to the United States in July 1970 after nearly 2 years in Vietnam. He landed at the Seattle-Tacoma airport feeling happy to be home. However, his arrival was not what he was expecting. Instead of getting welcomed, Larry faced angry protesters shouting insults and calling soldiers baby killers. It was a deeply confusing and hurtful experience after everything he went through in Vietnam. Still, Larry was determined to move forward in his life. Just 2 weeks later, he married Nora, his longtime girlfriend. Starting civilian life was tough on him, though. He took on a series of short-term jobs, including selling vacuum cleaners and delivering milk, but struggled to find his place. Eventually, he moved with his wife to El Paso, Texas, Nora's hometown, where he found work as a prison guard. Over time, he transitioned into an office role and his career steadily advanced. He eventually rose to become a national safety administrator in Washington. After the war, Larry flew a helicopter only once. Despite his exceptional skills as a pilot, he never considered a flying career. He believed that kind of lifestyle wasn't suited for raising a family. Although he received 2 distinguished flying crosses, the recognition Larry cherishes most came from the wife of Captain Joe Garzik, the pilot he rescued in Vietnam. In a private email, she wrote to him, "Thank you for your service, but thank you will never be enough, because if not for you, your courage and your skill, I would not have had 43 years with Joe. My son would not exist. You gave Joe back to me. You gave me my life back. Forever in your debt, Patsy." Thank you for watching this episode, and thank you to all the Vietnam veterans for your service. Welcome home.